Call this meeting to order. Let's go around and identify ourselves for the record.
Felix Rivera.
Christopher Constant.
Suzanne LaFrance.
Chris Shirley, Office of Economic Community Development.
Barbara Jones, Municipal Clerk.
Dennis Long, Anchorage Fire Chief.
They train you sound like Dennis. It's your time. Sir.
Okay. Yep. Thank you very much. My name is Dennis LeBlanc, Anchorage Fire Chief, best position within the municipality. We'll go through a couple of things that I've handed out, and I've got extra copies if people need it. One of the things that is, I think, important to orient people to is we have two geographies that we maintain. And then, so if you look at the map that's attached on the second page, it shows in the far left in the middle the Anchorage Fire Service area. To the north is the Chugiak Volunteer Fire and Rescue Peak area, and then in the middle of the page toward the bottom is the Girdwood Volunteer Fire Service area. So those are our fire service areas, but yet you can see with the dotted line is the extent of the municipality. The emergency medical services that we provide is area-wide. So we go from basically mile 75, which is just at the base of the pass, all the way up to the Kinnick River Bridge, is what we're responsible for EMS. So when you look at areas between Girdwood and Anchorage, which is basically Potter's Marsh, that's outside of the fire service area, but it's within the EMS area. So just orient that quickly. If you go to the third page, it has the 2016 highlights, and obviously you'll have this if you look at it later, but you can see the extent of the volume by the various agencies: Girdwood, Chugiak, Light Med, the Anchorage Safety Patrol, Anchorage Fire Rescue. Yep.
Let the minutes reflect that Mr. Dyson joined us. Go ahead, Dennis.
So in the middle of that page, if you're on that page, 2016 highlights, you can see that fire actually represents only 2% of what we do from an activity base. But if you look down to rescue and EMS, 70% of what we do really involves medical services. And what's interesting about that, and what people don't understand, they'll see an ambulance running code red, lights and sirens, responding to a call, and then trailing behind the ambulance is an engine or a truck company. And people really don't understand that, but that's for manpower. The biggest risk we have today is injuries to firefighters, including the paramedics, in moving very large people in very, very difficult places. We had 3 firefighters injured last week trying to move a patient, a lifting assist, down 3 flights of stairs, very narrow staircase, on a stretcher, almost impossible to get ergonomically correct, and they strained their backs, and some of them are quite serious, others are just strained backs. But you can see the statistics there of how our calls are represented. On the bottom part of that page is the staffing summary. There's about 383 people in the Anchorage Fire Department. 315 of those folks are first responders, and you can see we have 20 in dispatch, 11 in prevention, the maintenance folks, etc. We have 13 fire stations located from Eagle River, which is Station 11, down to the southernmost station, which is Station 9. Station 9 is brand new, it was rebuilt, as well as Station 3. One thing I would encourage the new assembly members to do is to do a ride-along. And I would suggest that's about a 6-hour opportunity for you to come to the fire station, hook up with a battalion chief, and they'll take you around, introduce you to a number of stations, jump a few calls, and actually see how these men and women respond. Toward the bottom of that again is frontline apparatus. We have 35 frontline apparatus. Wish we had 37, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But the next couple pages just summarize things that have happened in the department over the past year with respect to training. Information technology is an extremely important part of the Anchorage Fire Department. All of our CAD, computer-assisted dispatch systems, all of the software, all of the apparatus have complex GPS mapping systems, obviously the radios, and all of that is maintained by our IT group as well as maintaining that pediatrics group. You see, yeah, so you can just look at those summaries. If you flip the page again, it talks a little bit about fire operations. We had the opportunity to open 2 rebuild stations, and importantly, station number 3 over at Bergog. That's the first station that's been named, and we named that in honor of Max Gruenberg for all of what he had done for the Anchorage Fire Department. There in the middle is special EMS operations, and it's just a summary, and you can see that terrible spike that we had in October of 2015 with Spice. Spice is still around. It represents probably 2 to 4% of what we do today, and it doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. If you flip the page again, you'll see a summary of Anchorage Fire Department. In the 3rd line down, Mike Levy, MD. Dr. Levy is a trauma doc at AR, Alaska Regional. He's been our medical director since during. Great guy, nationally recognized, and here is a summary of outstanding cardiac arrest survival that the Anchorage Fire Department is responsible for. Actually, 46 people last year were clinically dead, and today 43 of those 46 have no neurological issues whatsoever. And that's in part of our high-performance CPR and our computer dispatch system. Years ago, in a number of, most departments around the United States still use what we call the card system. So when you call and you start talking to the dispatcher, they finally get to the call card that is relative to your complaint. And there were then fixed questions, maybe 5, 6, 8 questions that they would ask before they would begin to give you instructions. Now with high performance CPR, it is no-go. No means is the person conscious. No. Is the person breathing? No. Immediately you begin CPR. And the dispatchers are very, very instructive. You know, get the person off the bed, get the person off the chair, get them flat to the ground. And they speak with authority. And then immediately they begin to teach them how to do CPR. And they will do that for the next 4 to 8 minutes until we arrive. And I guess the statistic is for every minute that CPR is not performed, the potential to survive decreases by 10%. So 6 minutes, 4 minutes, 60%, 40% of the survival opportunity is diminished if the person or the bystander is not performing CPR. And this article talks about how our first responders have just done an incredible job. And we saved the lives of 43 people last year who were clinically dead. So kudos to the dispatchers, kudos to all of the first line responders. This is your Anchorage Fire Department. The next page is an article out of today's paper, written by former Chief Craig Goodrich, and it discusses the mistake that we believe was made on Proposition 2, which failed 54 to 46. The proposal was to add 2 additional ambulances to our fleet. And when you add ambulances, you have to add firefighters. So as we have done over the past 15 years, for example, with Mayor Maestrom was in the mayor. Sorry. There's a
That's
story
nothing to
behind-
reflect on, Mike.
There's a story behind that. We'll go into it later. But in 1999, Station 1 there at 4th and A was built, and they added apparatus. And when we added apparatus, Mayor Maestrom raised the tax cap by the operating and maintenance expense associated with the salaries of those additional people. When Mayor Wirch was in office and we built new stations 14 and 15, we added O&M to the tax cap to pay for the firefighters' salaries that were staffing those new stations. Mayor Begich did it, and then most recently Mayor Sullivan did it when we added Medic 7. We added O&M to the tax cap. So we had a proposal in this bond to add 2 additional ambulances with 14 people. We run 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you need a minimum of 6 people to staff the ambulance, 2 for each day across 3 shifts. And then because people take annual leave, because people get sick, we actually fund for 7. So that was 2 times 7, 2 ambulances times 7 people, 14 people. That was $2.3 million a year to pay for their salaries. And that's the only way you can do it, because the tax cap calculations only inflate the amount of money you have by inflation, new construction, or population growth. So when you make dynamic changes, like Mayor Maestrom did in 1999, 2009, I'm sorry, I forget the date. We had to add to the O&M. And so the former mayors came out with an ad saying that was not, we shouldn't do that it was deceptive. And none of that was true. So despite all of the great things that your Anchorage Fire Department is doing, we face a very, very significant financial challenge this year with the defeat of Proposition 2. And we're still working for it. Right now, we're paying overtime, which is not budgeted, for 4 firefighters each day to staff 2 reserve ambulances, because since 2010, the number of transports that we do has increased by 38%. And we have not added any ambulances since 2010. So my intention is to continue to staff those ambulances with overtime, and then we'll have to look elsewhere where we cut, which may mean a reduction in services elsewhere. Rig closures is, one of the opportunities. So there's a lot of material there. I also presented you with the last report to the community. These come out every 2 years. We're in the middle of generating another one, but it has a very good summary of the department and the things that we do, as well as the geographical areas. And lastly, time's up. I'll just strongly encourage you to reach out to me or to Deputy Chief Jody Petrick, and we'll get you in a ride-along, and you'll get to see the fine efforts of the men and women of the Anchorage Fire Department.
Thank you, sir. You've been joined by the mayor. Welcome, Mr. Mayor. Questions from the Sunday members? Mr. Dyson.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Some people have commented to me about us having a more central dispatch for fire and public safety. And as I understand it, you all have put together the the systems both use are compatible or identical. But anyways, would you comment on that?
Yes, in fact, you're absolutely correct. As we speak, APD is moving off of their dispatch system to TriTech, and that's the system that we're on. So we will be compatible. We'll just be geographically separated, but electronically we will be joined at the hip.
And to continue, and please, these are not antagonistic questions. I understand there's a building here, probably not far from us, that was designated as being a dispatch center or some darn thing. Is being unused.
I'm sorry, sir, I'm not familiar with that at all.
Yeah.
On East Street, of course, we have the Emergency Operations Center, but that's separate from our dispatch center.
All right, and is it being utilized?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'm obviously confused about what it was. Is the jaws of death thing, how portable is it? Could it go in a sedan or an ambulance? Or it have to be on the truck?
I'm not.
Jaws of life.
Jaws of life.
Oh, the jaws of life. Yes, those are mounted on our trucks and our heavy rescue. And we have the electric generators to operate some of them, but now we're going to battery operated.
And I
So
assume
the
one,
extrication devices to cut up the cars.
and I assume one person could carry it around.
One person can operate it, yes. Yeah. But when they're doing that, there's probably 10 to 16 firefighters at that point. They're trying to extricate something.
And lastly, in the years I haven't been paying official attention, I'm really impressed with the stoplight, black traffic control lights around. You guys can push a button or something and it clears gives you green lights everywhere you're going some way.
Not all stations, that's Opticon, Fred, if they're on the road, but some of our stations, like Fire Station 3, that you mentioned, doesn't have that system for them to take off out of Station 3. We're trying to get that fixed, and also on the Guinness Station 4. Okay, sorry.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right.
It's just delightful.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Suzanne.
And thank you for this information and the presentation. So staffing would be your biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge we have now is we have not enough ambulances to respond to the demand of the city. So we have to pay overtime to staff reserve ambulances, which I don't have a budget for. So I have told the Assembly through the Public Safety Committee that I would be back in May. We're doing a lot of things administratively to try to reduce costs, but in May I should have a good feel for what the year-end projections would be if we continue to operate as we are today. And if that exceeds my approved budget, then we'll have to look at other things to do outside of administrative controls, and that would affect operations and our ability to continue to respond as we are today.
So the reserve ambulances?
So a quick update. We follow NFPA, National Fire Protection Act guidelines. So our frontline engines, if you will, we keep them in frontline service for 15 years. At year 16, we move them into reserve status. And they're in reserve status for 10 years. So at 25 years, we take them out of service. Mostly we end up donating them to smaller departments throughout Alaska. We've done that about 3 or 4 times this year. And the ambulances, probably 7 to 9 years, because they run, as you see, 70% of what we do is emergency medical services. So those ambulances respond 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get about 7 years out of them. And then we move them into reserve status for probably another 5. When they get to 12 to 15 years, they're just not functional anymore. They cost too much for maintenance. So then we donate them also. So right now, we have 9 frontline ambulances, or MICUs, mobile intensive care units. And they're either staffed by a paramedic or firefighter EMTs. And we're trying to go to 11 because, again, we've seen, a 35-38% increase in runs since 2010, which was the last time we added an ambulance. And what I don't want to do is end up as oftentimes with police, you call for a small motor vehicle accident and you get put into staff. And staff just means it's a waiting list. We'll get to you when we can. And right now, the Anchorage Fire Department doesn't do that. But there could be an opportunity in the future where, say, somebody has a broken leg. That's important. We want to respond. But if there's a cardiac arrest or a stroke or a seizure, we would divert that ambulance from the broken leg to the more, higher acuity calls. We haven't had to really do that, but now that Prop 2 failed, that's an opportunity in the future to begin to divert ambulances.
We need to move on, but this will be a subject for discussion in our Public Safety Committee. A lot of discussion. Because I remember when you had to move some of the paramedics over Station 1 to Station 12, because they were getting burned out of Station 1, despite some of it. Felix, Chris, anything?
Well, just what you were just speaking about, Chief, the idea of wait lists or queues for service. That's what was my understanding. What the 2 additional units were on loan for was to manage the issue of spice and the downtown, because there were a number of incidences where there were no ambulances available citywide because they were all up in the north of town here picking up spice, users. And so if there were a call for someone with a heart attack or some other critical measure that we've talked about, they wouldn't get service from a MICU, an actual mobile ICU, and transferred. Instead, they would wait with an engine. You'd respond because you have engines and people that can do that.
Yes, sir.
But that would not save their lives in that kind of 6-minute to 8-minute window because they need to get on the way. And so, as I understand it, in fact, there have been and are on occasion incidences where we don't have the means to provide those services. And so I think that it's super important that everybody knows we're not just talking about it might happen, but it has happened. And the arrangement we were operating under was an effort to fix that while we're working towards a long-term solution.
Yes, sir.
So I just want to be really clear that that's what I understand.
It's a critical function of the city.
Yeah,
When somebody's down, you come into your house and you find your wife has collapsed. You call the paramedics, you need the ambulance to start rolling immediately.
Yes.
They can't be queued and wait, we'll get you eventually. But thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to development services next.
Actually, Office of Economic and Community Development, Chris Schutte is next and is going to introduce his team.
Yes.
That's
Good
all
morning.
I think you gave me, Barbara. Go ahead.
Good morning. So, as Barbara said, my name is Chris Schutte. I run the Office of Economic and Community Development here at the municipality. We're here today to give you, in the next roughly 30 minutes, a quick overview of all the responsibilities of departments within OECD, which is how we typically refer to ourselves. Many of my team and directors are here today, and they're going to go through their operations individually, but we're going to start just with a high-level overview of OECD. And I'm going to leave the lights up. Oh, okay. We're going to turn the lights off now.
Is that okay?
That's fine, yeah. Just don't want people to fall asleep. Yeah. So just real briefly, if you're not familiar with the organizational chart of the city, as you can see, we've divided the city functions into 3 core areas, one managed by the municipal manager, one managed by the CFO, and the last managed by the OECD office. So these are the specific functions and departments underneath OECD. So, Dick, as you mentioned, it covers development services, it covers the Anchorage Library, Parks and Recreation, the Planning Department, real estate, which is both real estate services and Heritage Land Bank, as well as the board-managed entity of ACDA. Additionally, we oversee what's known as the Culture, Entertainment, and Arts Venues Division. This is our responsibility there is management of all the municipal public facilities and cultural establishments. And lastly, one that's not on the org chart currently because it's newly created is what's known as the Geographic Information and Data Center. This is the central division responsible for all the GIS functions here in the city. So departments that rely on both data and geospatial information is coordinated through that department. Before we go into the individual presentations, I just want to introduce the various directors and team members. The back row is largely my team here in City Hall on the 8th floor. Renee Stewart, who is going to be our grants manager. Debbie, who's soon to retire in about 6 hours, who is the outgoing grants manager. We've got Katie Doherty here, who's our project manager. Marie's, who's hiding around the corner here, has been our UA intern for the past 6 months. Tina Miller, who runs the Geographic Information and Data Center. Hal Hart, planning director. Kent Colhase, acting building official. Jack Frost, acting development services director. Robin Ward, chief housing officer / real estate services director. John Rada, over at Parks and Rec, most of you know John. Claire Ross, who's my deputy director, specifically focused on libraries. And last but not least, Mary Jo Torgerson with the Anchorage Library System. I'm going to pause right there before we jump into our presentation because we have something to tell you today, Mary Jo. Ethan?
Good job. So I wanted to congratulate you on 5 years with the municipality. I know these anniversaries sometimes pass unnoticed, but not in this instance. It's a little overdue, as it were. And we wanted to make sure that you received the recognition you should have. This is our 5-year bid. And you had just been exceptional taking care of the libraries. Even when you've been laid up a little bit, you've been scooching around. And given that the library is spread through the entire part of the municipality, you've been doing a great job with an incredibly shrinking budget. You can only imagine what will happen when you get the resources that the library should have. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we would love to put this on our Facebook page, so could you come over here in front of the new members, and we'll get the new members, and you and Mary Jo and Chris in the photo?
You want us to sit down or?
No, you are just right. That looks good. Thank you all. And hopefully my photography skills are good enough.
Thank you, Barbara. Thanks for letting us take a little extra time. Anyway, as the work session concludes, we brought some snacks to enjoy with Mary Jo and celebrate her 5-year anniversary.
Great.
So moving on real quick, these are the people I introduced. One that I left out because he stepped out of the room is, there he is, Brendan Babb. Many of you know Brendan as the Chief Innovation Officer for the city, focused solely on how do we improve the service delivery in an innovative and efficient way, looking at data and technology as important tools in doing that. Real broadly, sure. Mostly we're going to talk, but if you want to be able to read the screen, we'll dim the lights. And this will be available after the work session for anybody who wants this. But just broadly speaking, OECD, as I describe it, is responsible for the live, work, and play functions of the city. We're responsible for the coordination and management of all municipal departments that work to improve the economic vitality of the community. They facilitate commercial and residential property development, enforce building and land use codes, and we manage regional planning projects. Additionally, we're overseeing the community programs and assets that contribute to the quality of life for those who live, work, and play in Anchorage. Some sample work that we focus on the 8th floor. We're running the Vision Zero program here. In fact, that's Katie Doherty's baby, and it's designed to reduce traffic injuries and fatalities through policy. We're looking at food policy initiatives. How do we expand access to and production of urban food? Many community development initiatives. Work closely with Hal, Jack, Kent, and Robin on these. And then Brendan looking at innovations and improvements. How can we improve the efficiency of the municipal government through technology? Some issues that we largely hear about or deal with. Obviously, Title 21 is one that we hear about a lot. Fees and adjudicatory decisions related to building processes or entitlement processes. Marijuana is an issue that we dealt with heavily last year, and now I feel like we're kind of on cruise control a little bit, but that still comes back to us frequently, and we work closely with the Assembly on those issues. First up on the department descriptions, I'm going to hand it off to Mary Jo to talk a little bit about the library. The game plan for today, guys, is as we talk about the departments, I want the department directors to run the show. So you can please feel free to ask questions, etc. We're going to try and keep it to the 30 minutes that we've been allotted, but please interact with anybody. Mary Jo?
So the library is not, our bread and butter are books and the materials we serve. Libraries are evolving into community centers, and that's certainly made a very large focus for us. That and finishing the LUSAC renovation, which will be happening, the doors will be opening June 27th, and the whole project, we hope, will be completely done by August 1st. The self-directed education, that is a major role for our libraries today. And it's not only the books, but, and I'm kind of going to go also to our partnerships. It's not only the books, but it's the virtual databases that we use. For example, through the technology and partnership with ASD, we hooked up 34,000 children with library cards just through the use of technology. We avoided the plastic, we avoided all the paper, and were able to download the information. Now, while circulation has not gone drastically up for paper materials, through the roof for our virtual databases, particularly one called Tumble Books, it's gone up 300%. So this is an example of how we've worked with our technology and some of our databases. We've also worked with other departments, for example, with the city. We downloaded the personnel information so that all of the city IT department got a library card so they could use one of our databases called lynda.com. And Lynda is an example both for self-directed education but also fits into the economic development. It's a product where today's learning is different. It's a product where you can go in, use specific pieces of information. So for example, we're using lynda.com in the library to examine lead projects. So as we move into new parts of the library, we can create some efficiencies. And that's not costing us anything. Our database already does it. The research and assistance, we're utilizing our staff but also our space. So, for example, one of the things in Eagle River, the employment division is shutting down shop. We're going to form a partnership with the employment division, and they will be using our space in the library as well as our resources. The educational and the research assistance, we are also, because economic development is a large portion of what we do, we've gotten a grant through the Anchorage Community Foundation to establish a job shop. And the job shop, really, we replicated what we tested out at Mountain View, and we're implementing an assistance for people, for job seekers, and we're utilizing Vista, Summer Vista Help to augment our staff. The instructive and enlightening experiences, again, that's one of the ways that libraries are changing. One of the experiences for us is to create what libraries become concierge almost, and developing and pulling information from multiple places to provide enlightening educational experiences. The social service piece, it's a project that we're very proud of, and it really is in response to some of the mayor's initiative. We see people who have different abilities, who are homeless, who really need a leg up. And so the partnership that we did with DHHS of working with a UAA intern to provide social welfare assistance in the library. This last year was our first time period of 6 months, And we actually met yesterday and will be forming a partnership, a continued partnership, and only this time we'll explore master's level and explore grants. Again, these are folks that don't go necessarily to other social service agencies. They come to the library because we have internet, we have materials, and most importantly, we have staff that care and read them. And we had a wonderful letter from a patron who really appreciated the services while she was frankly getting sober. One of the things that I don't have copies of is our long-range plan. And in the same way that other departments don't quite meet up to perhaps industry standards, we're down the numbers of libraries we should have for a community this size. We have 4 branches, the main library. And the long-range plan is helping to guide us, guide the foundation, Friends of the Library, as well as the library board, to establish branches at key locations. Right now, we're working to explore a downtown library, and that is unique because the foundation received a request. So we're being very careful in how we approach that. What does the community need? What would be the best location? And a combination of our friends and foundation are part of our volunteer group to talk to key stakeholders around that issue. At this point in time, we're not exactly sure when it will be open, but again, there are some dollars to help with opening that particular branch. Other locations could be one in the south end because there's not a library in the south end anymore. We're hoping that Muldoon there will be a development that we can take advantage of at the Muldoon location, and way down the road is west side. It's been 10 years almost for some of our branches for updating, and that will be one of the other issues. We don't want to fall into a trap that happened at LUSAC. Remember, it was 30 years since LUSAC was touched, and that is the project that we're doing to update HVAC. We won't be done after this project. We'll have other floors, and we'll continue to look for additional funding for that. We will be calling you and asking for a visit, just so you can see some of what we do. To me, one of the most important things that we do is really help children. If children don't read at a 3rd grade level, by the time they're 3rd graders rather, they have less chance of graduating from high school. A very interesting statistic. People that don't graduate from high school, they stay within a 5 to 10 mile radius. So it's very important that our kids get educated. We see our role as helping children be prepared for kindergarten as one of the most important things to do.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask. We're going to move through this fairly quickly. I apologize for that, but you know how to reach all of us. And we can, as Mary Jo indicated, we're going to tour the library at some point if you haven't toured it already. And we'll provide much more information for you offline. Thank you, Mary Jo.
Chris, if you guys don't mind, I would like the lights on.
Sure.
Only because I'd rather see the speaker
That's fine.
than a flat
No,
slide.
that's fine.
Thank you.
Brendan, thank you. All right, John, Parks and Rec.
That's not here. I want each of you to read this later.
Nobody thinks of opening up that parking area.
Yeah.
So, good morning. It's nice to step out for a minute. Probably the easiest way to describe this is we kind of touch everybody. Whether it's it's healthy parks, healthy people, healthy futures, clean, clean, safe, secure. All the things that kind of go along with it. But a lot of people take us for granted, if you will. But you can't go anywhere in this city without having some effect of parks and recreation. Whether you're on a trail, whether you're on a park property, whether you're driving by a town square or park, it really makes no difference. At some point during your day, typically, there is something about parks and recreation, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, that you're involved with, connected or not. And it's a big project. We're fortunate to have a very dedicated group of people. And we've experienced over the last 9 years the results of the budget production process. And yet we've examined, we've retooled, we've reorganized, we've continued, if you will, to be everything we can be within the confines of our capacity, and that is the funding we have. We're at the same budget level as what we were 9 years ago, if you look at it.
So dollars of the day, or
Dollars to dollars, not including any
inflation?
inflation or anything like that, we have the same amount of money as we had 9 years ago. So we've had to do a lot of shifting. But I'm very proud, honestly, of what has happened in the department. One of the ladies who wasn't recognized is Elizabeth Stanley, who's sitting back here. And Liz, I have two very key people in our organization. Liz is one, and our area manager, her name is Karen Richards. These two people do yeoman's work. They're amazing. Sometimes you walk into a meeting or something like that and say, okay, John, just on it. Well, I can tell you that Liz and Karen, they're a big part of what comes out of my mouth. I'll just tell you, they're awesome. So Chris wasn't just part to recognize with his line. So anyway, you guys should know that. We have 14,000 acres of parkland. That's big. It's a lot of space. And that goes from Muir Lake all the way to Portage. So that's our stand. And everything we do. 9 out of 10 people, if you talk to them, when they say, why do you live here, what's important, whatever, they're going to say something about a park, a trail, a facility, a program, or whatever. You hear that pretty constantly. But it's our job to make sure that we deliver those services in the right manner and fashion. And that's a challenge. Okay? We've met the challenge, and I think we'll continue to meet the challenge, and we're looking forward because I know there's going to be more challenges based on what's being forecasted, if you will, for next year's budget. So Chris knows this. We've talked about it. I asked questions about it. We'll get there. But what's key, though, is, I guess, to really recognize the span of what we do. So we've got 14,000 acres of parkland. We've got combined over 250 parks. Not are all developed. About 130 are actually development parks. We've got 283 miles of trails in this city. So stop and think about it. It's like almost right in the fairways. So that's a lot. And 94 playgrounds and on and on and on. So, what we try to do is maintain everything to the best of our ability. Fred's pretty well versed with the Chuniacke River community. I've worked with him for a long time. Felix, when you were in the mayor's office, Chris, you and I have had conversations before, and I'm sorry we haven't met, but I'm sure we will. But who we are and what we do really is embraced by the community. Anchorage has its own flavor, Chuniacke River has its own flavor, and River has its own flavor. And you have to tailor what you do around the dynamics of those areas. Everybody has kind of a different identity, personality. They have key individuals in the community who are often the drivers. And we have various related sports groups, organizations, and demand for services. So we're very diverse, and we have to be a very diverse community overall. So there's lots of ideas that are out on the table, lots of things we would love to be able to do. We are restrained to a certain extent because we don't have the financial capacity or the human resources. But I think by and large, we're very responsive. Point to Felix a little bit because he's in the mayor's office. We get lots of calls for lots of different things. And one of the primary now, as Chris knows, and the mayor's still here, but others in this room know, and that's the homeless situation. It's a big part of what we do for community work service. They're not really well recognized for what they put into servicing needs in the community or just the municipality in general. We're working very diligently through the homeless initiatives to help clean up some of those spaces. And we had a big meeting about that yesterday. And there's more Tina's in the room, but she's got some new tools for the public that will help them see what we're doing and track what we're doing and get responses about how things are going and things like that. We work very closely with the APD and the capital. So. And then the other piece, I guess, bottom line is we've had a lot of support over the years from the administration. I appreciate Mayor Berkowitz working with Chris, Mike Abbott, Assembly Chair Trainee, and lots of things with. It's a pleasure. I feel really fortunate to get to do what I do. It's something that gives you a lot of personal satisfaction. It also brings you a lot of personal grief at times, unfortunately, when your phone rings for various and sundry reasons. But we are pretty well broad service, I guess is what I would say. And it's not just about our programs and the parks and trails. We complement the fire department when there's a fire. We open up the rec centers and shelters. It's happened in Paris, it's happened in Bernard, it's happened in people who are on the field. You know, we work with the captain on the homeless or other problems. We've got big projects going on. The new update for master planning for Town Square Park is another example. You're going to hear a lot more about that, soon. But that's well underway. South Anchor Sports Park is getting a major upgrade out there. New molding Town Square Park, which will be huge for G7. And all the stuff that goes on in between. The other part is in the inclusive playground. Has really started something that I think is beneficial to the entire community. And inclusivity is a must. And we actually have another project, improvement lawn mess Fairview, actually take the old little gym and turn that into an inclusive play area inside the building year-round. So people with challenges particularly can go there all times of the year and use that for recreation. So we think that's going to be huge for that area as well. So anyway, I could go on about lots of stuff. Ask me questions, call me, whatever you'd like to do. I appreciate the time. I know we've got to wrap this up quickly.
Mr. Dyson has a question.
Sure.
Mr. Dyson?
Thanks for what you do. Is there somewhere where you post the volunteer opportunities? It's on your website.
Yeah. And we have a volunteer coordinator. Her name is Michelle Fairback.
Yep.
And anybody who has volunteerism in their mind.
I got it. Sometime I'd enjoy a little conversation about relationship with the State Park and long-standing park access issues. And lastly, have you figured out a way to keep people from driving bobcats on pedestrian bridges?
I won't comment. What I did leave for you was a report that was tendered up to the administration. We give you a sample of the projects that we've been involved with, and this is last year's summer, so we will look at that as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, John. Next up is Robin Ward, the Chief Housing Officer for the city and Director of Real Estate. And I will pass it to him.
Thank you. I'm going to be fairly brief because we're starting to run out of time, but I am going to give you a handout that will be a resource. It's a little bit more detail of how our real estate department operates. We're a very small department. We have a staff of 5, but these are very, very dynamic people. And they cover a lot of territory. We manage uncommitted land and real estate for the municipality. Again, like John does, from Clutna to Portage. Thousands and thousands of acres of land. Some is accessible, some of it isn't. Some of it is developable, some isn't. The handout will describe the difference between what is in general real estate and what is in Heritage Land Bank. Heritage Land Bank is a very special category of property that is set aside, it's uncommitted land set aside for future municipal use. It has a sustaining fund, it has a commission, so I've included that. It has its own ordinance, so I've given you that code and also contacts for our commission, who gives advisory to the mayor and to the assembly. They're an awesome group do with our land. So some of the projects that we're working on, you may have seen that we're putting out some RFPs. We want to be the pilot to start some of the new projects, especially downtown. So, and we're going to start on municipal land. So we have a few of those right now. This is the one that was just, we had a successful proposal. This is a Creek Inlet project called Elizabeth Place. These are 3 Heritage Land Bank lots located downtown that we were able to get the reverter clauses removed and put it out to make sure that it was surplus to municipal use. It was. We went through the commission. We did an RFP, and we got 3 proposals. This is our successful proposal. So you're going to actually see a paved parking lot being redeveloped into a mixed-use housing development. And we're doing more. This is just one example. A couple of the things that we do have issues with, of course, always is funding. You'll hear that probably from every department. In order to, we need to spend money to make money. We need a lot of times to perform some pre-development work before we can put our properties up for sale. It's usually platting and rezoning, and so we have to find funds to be able to do that. We try and manage our funds very carefully to make sure that they're well invested into properties that will create that return, not only in community benefits and economic development, but also the return to the HOB fund. Some of our, let's see, I'm going to go through this quickly. We do lease. One of the things you may not know is that we have lots and lots of leases. So we don't own City Hall, we lease it. We don't own the Permit Center, we lease that. So we manage all of the leases to and from the municipality. We also manage all of the lands along with those leases. We also have all the property management. We try and perform inspections on all of our properties at least once a year if they're accessible. And also, we manage the tax foreclosed property program. So on an average, our department collects about $6 million a year in delinquent taxes. When they become severely delinquent, we begin managing that. And in October of every year, we take clerk's deed to those that are severely delinquent. This year we took clerk's deed to 67 properties. We worked very diligently with the property owners to repurchase if they could possibly pay off those taxes. We got down to 4 that went to the property tax foreclosure sale earlier this month, and all of those sold. They're put back on the property rolls for property tax, and all of the surplus excess proceeds from those sales are available for the next 6 months to be claimed by those future or those previous property owners. So we work very hard at putting properties back to the property owner if possible. If not, they're sold and put back on the property tax rolls and excess proceeds of the claim for those previous property owners. So again, I'm going to try to be quick so that other departments can make presentations. And again, you have an open invitation to our department. Anytime you would like to come in, talk about any issues, look over our inventories or whatever, we would love to have you.
Yep, Robin. So you said 64 properties. That was in October.
Yes.
Works down to 4 in April. Okay, thank you.
It's a hard process. By the
I
time it gets to
imagine.
the assembly,
Yeah.
then we have the owner that comes in front of us and says, I didn't have a chance to pay off my taxes. There's always some story. But Robin does a great job trying to get the money that needs to come to the city for taxes and help them do it.
Thank you. That's great. Actually.
Thank you, Robin. Adam, just one point. I'll always be a nag about this. I encourage you all to be careful about acronyms. And you use them at least the first time and spell out what it means. Thank you.
Al? Yeah.
So, my name's Hal Hart. I'm here one of the newer on this team. I'm out of Juneau. I think it's really important. Historic preservation, what I handed out, I think we're doing a good job looking at our resources right now. We have a historic preservation plan process that's underway. And so we're looking at those resources and we're thinking about how can we use those resources as a form of economic development. Draw tourists to them, reuse them. It's always energy. It's always good in the long term to reuse your assets that you have in your community and use it to educate people on the history of Alaska as well. So that's just one thing. Another thing you're going to see coming out shortly, I've seen the cut, is we have a video of Pilot's Row coming out. And so we'll put that out there to take a look. It's the history of Pilot's Row and how that was developed by military personnel just prior to World War II. And then as the war broke out, they had to evacuate the families. And they left a lot of the stuff just standing there. So it's kind of a poignant story, but a story of this city and one of the many stories. So getting to the point on the board, the best way to think of us is that there's really three divisions. The biggest division is current planning. So what do? The primary thing that they're engaged in is helping everybody that comes through that requires a permit of some kind, from mom and pop to big developer out of the lower 48 that's coming up. And we help them through that process. And I think the kind of important piece is a lot of times current planning starts talking a couple of years ahead of time. So we'll have somebody that says, hey, I'm interested in investing, or a company's interested in coming to Alaska. What's that all about? So we will connect them to economic development or to any of these other departments when they have a question. And I think that's really important. Sometimes it's a gateway when they start calling around, or we'll send them over to agency. So that's one part. We do a lot of boards and commissions, and we're also coordinating with a lot of neighborhood groups too. We're about 35 neighborhood groups, and I met with 2 of them last night. And there's several of them updating their plans at the same time. So South Division is working on a plan. Met with them last night. We also met down in Girdwood. Girdwood had a meeting last night, and they brought in the mayor of Breckenridge to talk about housing and how important housing is to ski towns. And so they threw a lot of really cool ideas, and I'll report those. I'll take that information now and give it to our housing and real estate team, and we'll continue that dialogue as they move forward with their comprehensive plan update. So we have a lot of these neighborhood plans that are always in motion. We also have in motion is the bowl plan, where we're trying to update something really is based on very old data now. We've now got new data. We'll be finishing that off in 1 or 2 meetings in May at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that will be before you. So we'll have a 101, and we'll dive deeper as you want to go deeper in the update. And it's a very strategic look at 2040. Where do we want to be in 2040 as a community, and what are the key issues that we're going to be addressing. And again, one of them will be housing. Another one is economic development. Where do you want that housing to go is a big deal on that plan. The other, I think, big deal on that plan is understanding that we've spread out as a community over the last 50 years, and it's harder to develop some of the properties. So some of the property that's left is very wet, or it's high up on the hill, and you need road access to it. So one example might be up in Bear Valley, that to make a connection up there could open up 100 or 200 home sites eventually, or even more, depending on working with the landowners in that area. But also an infill strategy is really important. You saw Robin talking about the downtown. So one of the things we're thinking about in the 2040 plan is very much about how to take those parking lots redevelop those into housing and create a live, work, play community. And that's a really important term. We can always dive deeper into that term too, but just the concept there is we want to have housing that's affordable and close to where you work, and fun things that you can go to. So our great park system and the trail system want to be connected that way. The other connection to public works and transportation for the goal plan will be just making sure that where you live, work, and play, that we can get there using the transportation system. And you have different ways to get there. You could ride a bike, you could walk or drive. And transit is another link that we're working closely with to reinforce that 2040 plan. So those are the big things. So let's talk about transportation planning itself. That's a regional function that's also housed within our office. But yesterday, we were meeting and updating that regional plan right now. And we're working with transportation planners to do that through HDR as a consultant. And they will look at that long-range plan I was just talking about for the bowl, as well as other plans. And they really want to know who's coming in, what kind of development, and where is that development likely to go. So I'm building those lists and sending those lists to them, on a daily basis, so that they can look ahead at 2040 or the next 20 years as well. And so our land use, our transportation, and all the services that we provide as a city are coordinated. So that's the three in a big.
Mr. Chairman, in the interest of time, if there are any questions for Hal, please jump in. We're respectful of your time, and with your permission, Mr. Chairman, can we run a little late?
We can run a little late. It's going to push everybody back.
Yeah, we'll try and keep it at about 5 minutes. Is that okay, guys? That's fine.
Okay.
Just brief.
Mr. Dyson?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you have agreement with dirt digging contractors if they find something that they need to notify you? I mean, something besides power lines, water lines.
I'm going to defer that to the building.
Just say yes or no.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. All right. And do you do anything overlaps with the Fluka people and their?
Yes.
Okay, good. And I have the first Eagle River Library building sitting in my yard if you want it.
Let's make sure that if you want it, on the list of historic structures.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Chris?
So last night, or yesterday at the AMATS meeting, we postponed temporarily the freight mobility study. And I didn't think of it in the context of the land use plan map.
Yes.
Does that throw in a hitch to that process that we're waiting a month?
I think we're okay as long as we don't delay too far. But I'll defer to Mr. Lyons and Chris here. So, but it's a really important question that we're asking.
Thank you, Chris.
Great. Thank you, Hal. Jack and Ken, the dynamic duo of development services.
Before Jack starts, let me tell you, get his numbers, figure out where he lives, do anything you can buy him dinner. Because as somebody member, this gentleman and his staff, you're going to call him all the time. Go ahead, Jack.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I'm Jack Frost, Acting Director of Development Services. With me is Kent Colhays, who's both the municipal engineer and the acting building official. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about what our department does. Development Services, our overall mission is to generally help guide development, and we do that through application and enforcement of several different codes, one of which is Title 21, the Land Use Code. Very importantly, Building Safety, Title 23, which are the building codes. And we have 7 sections within the department. First of all, we have addressing, which is just a 2-person operation, but they're responsible for every single address in the municipality, all the way to, you've heard from other departments, from Connect all the way up to Ingram Creek before you go to the peninsula. So it's a huge job. There's a GIS component to that as well, and it's very important. I'll let ask Kent to discuss building safety mission here.
So building safety involves everything from the concept of a project to once it's worked its way through the planning process, they come in for a building permit, plan review, through inspection, and finally issuance of a certificate of occupancy. We also have in that department this code abatement. There's 2 code abatement inspectors whose job is to both proactively find issues with the code enforcement, but even more important, to respond to complaints from members of the public. Felix, I know that when you were in the mayor's office, you fielded many of those and sent them on to us. So they're extremely busy and really do a great job of responding to those complaints, I think. That's it in a nutshell. We'll probably get into maybe some questions later. That's the overview of the building safety department.
Moving on to land use enforcement. Enforcement's in the title, but what we try to do is be proactive and assist the public so that we don't get into enforcement situations. We answer questions and interpret code, primarily Title 21. But they also are responsible for a total of 9 separate codes, including housing code. So we look at zoning things, anywhere from junk vehicles to setbacks to building heights to vehicle signs, exactly times. So at some point we'll touch, as Mr. Trady said, please feel free to call us. We'll help whenever we can. Land use plan review, that's has 2 people in it. They're responsible for plan review of all the building and land use permits for compliance with Title 21. On to on-site water and wastewater, well and septics. They help regulate and permit that and inspect. Again, you want to touch on private development?
Sure, private development. I used to work in private development, so that there's a staff of 3 there, and their role is to work with private developers who are doing really one of 2 things. It might be one of the big ones is subdivisions. If there's a piece of raw land that's being subdivided through the planning process, private development picks that up once the planning process is done and works with a developer to guide them through the process of building public infrastructure, streets, storm drains, curb and gutter, sidewalks, street lighting, things like that. And then related, private development also works on commercial, which would be generally a triplex or larger single project. So doesn't involve plating action, but it involves construction of a triplex or larger. It goes through a plan review process. And projects like that sometimes are solely contained within the private property, but sometimes a larger project might invoke the requirement for improvements to adjacent public infrastructure if that infrastructure is not from built.
Moving on to the right-of-way division. They manage uses within municipal rights-of-way, including public use easements, dedicated rights-of-way, many different things like that. Any sort of permitting for uses that are required. We also do construction inspection for small projects. That excludes capital projects. That's managed by the project management and engineering, and also enforcement of Title 24, which is the municipal code that covers that. So if you have questions on any of these at all, anytime, please feel free to contact us. Come visit us. We'll be happy to show you what we actually do. And, so moving on to the issues that we have, obviously, Ed, you want to talk about the building permits inspection?
Sure. I know we're pressed for time. Quickly, the building safety department deals in we're working with the codes and guiding safe development and helping developers work their way through that process. But really what it comes down to day in and day out is we're dealing in conflict. And you'll get calls, Chris gets calls, the mayor gets calls, because the conflict arises from when we say no. We're a kind of a pseudo-regulatory agency, a regulatory section, and we're charged with enforcing the codes, and complying with those codes costs money. And I understand that development is all about profit and money related, as well as improving the city. So there's a lot of conflict. You'll receive those calls. Feel free to contact me or members of my building safety staff or Jack. We're always willing to walk people through our decision-making process. And I would say generally there's at least two sides to most issues that come in. Inspections, it's kind of self-explanatory. There's some projects in the building safety service area require full inspection. If it's a building being built under land use permit in Eagle River or Girdwood, there's not inspections. That can go to the portion for you, Jack.
Just similar comments, Ken just had that there's a lot of times there'll be questions on our enforcement actions, and again, there's two sides to everything, so we'd be happy to go over any questions that they have.
Mr. Chairman, we're now 12 minutes over, so I
Yes, we
think
are.
if you're okay, we can wrap it up now.
We wrap up, appreciate it. I want to move on.
Yeah, not a problem. I will be respectful of everyone else. We'll provide this presentation to each of the new members. It has a few more sections to go specific to the GIS function within OECD and to the facility management function. So we'll get that to you. And then if you have any questions, you all know how to reach us. So thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate the performance being here.
Information about the available GIS data on the AA's website. Hi.
Thanks. So every time I go into the works, I get an error message. Oh man.
They're really cool to all
I'll be right back.
I have our media anniversary funds. How are you? Nice to see you. Nice to meet you. I'm Linda Freeman. Mr. Dyson, we have interacted many times before. Linda Freeman. Yeah. You like our what? Oh, thank you.
Good morning.
How are you this morning? I know you're like information overload, but at least you already know a lot of it. So that's good. These are
for about a year, but in the position that I was in at the mayor's office, you learn everything.
Linda Freeman now will talk to us about what her department does. You get lots of calls, believe me.
Good morning.
Noise call.
Thank you for being here this morning. My name is Melinda Freeman, and I'm the director of the Department of Health and Human Services. And we're going to be talking about one of the jewels of Anchorage Services this morning with you. I know you're inundated with information this morning, so hang in there. It's all in the PowerPoint, and my contact information is there in case you have questions. We are celebrating our 80th anniversary. April of 1937, we began providing, not myself, although if it looks like that, then I have a problem there. We began providing services in the public health arena for Anchorage. We are considered and not often recognized as the third leg of the public safety stool. You have Anchorage Fire Department, you have Anchorage Police Department, and you have the Department of Health and Human Services. And this morning I'll share with you how that interfaces and why we describe public health in this way. So we say that we serve from cradle to grave, and we literally do that. We have 15 distinct programs that we provide for the municipality of Anchorage through Department of Health and Human Services. On the second page, you'll note that our budget is $24.5 million. We have 103 staff at the HHS to provide these services, and we contract with approximately 4 distinct service delivery systems in Anchorage, and they have approximately 75 employees. We provide contracts to the Anchorage Senior Activity Center and the Chugiak Senior Center, as well as the Animal Care and Control and the Anchorage Safety Patrol and Safety Center. You can see on the second slide on the bottom of the second page, this is the pie chart informing you of the different ways that the operating budget funds these other programs. So when you see on the top slide that we receive approximately $9 billion we can really utilize, but we'll get to that later. $9 million in tax support, approximately half of that goes to these contractual services. In these 15 distinct programs. We include that we staff 7 commissions for the municipality of Anchorage. We're on page 3, Chris. We implement 15 programs, and I'll go over those very briefly this morning, and we'd be happy to take you on a tour if you would like to have information on site. We provide information and referral to our Aging and Disability Resource Center. These are for seniors as well as vulnerable populations. We're funded through the state to do that. We provide air quality monitoring on a very limited basis with our limited staff and capacity. We provide that. We provide information on air quality alerts as well as handle complaints. We oversee the Anchorage Animal Care Control Center contract, which is a very complex contract, making sure that both our families are safe in Anchorage related to pets and stray animals. You'll see on page 3 that this describes to you all of the different services that we provide, and then I go into detail, but I'll do that quickly since I know Mark is waiting for solid waste services. So we also oversee the Anchorage Memorial Park Cemetery. That is one of the most beautiful cemeteries I've seen, and in Anchorage that provides a very valuable service for individuals and families. And we currently have just written a draft of a white paper about the future of the cemetery and how we need to move towards development of that and when we will reach capacity of the cemetery. Many of you are familiar with the Anchorage Safety Patrol and Safety Center. That is a Title 47 mandated services for Anchorage, and that assists people who are incapacitated by drugs or alcohol, and they are unable to care for themselves in that immediate moment, and we receive calls all over Anchorage to pick up individuals who are inebriated or unable to take care of themselves, and we take them to the safety center. We also oversee the child care licensing program, which ensures the safety of children in both home care and institutional or facility care. We oversee and implement the disease prevention and control program through our public health clinic downstairs at 8th Avenue. In that capacity, we do extensive disease epidemiology work where we investigate diseases that have potential outbreaks for Anchorage. And most recently, Ebola was in the news, a year or 2 ago, as well as Zika, and we would do any investigations if there were concerns in Anchorage. So we kind of are called informally the best kept secret in Anchorage. If we're doing our job, often you hopefully don't get complaints. We oversee and implement the domestic violence and sexual assault prevention program in partnership with AFD and other muni partners to ensure the safety of individuals who may be victims of domestic violence. That is a specific program to intervene as early as possible with people who have been arrested to make sure they're in compliance. We oversee the emergency preparedness process for Anchorage. In addition to working with the Emergency Operations Center, we have to be able to provide medications in the event of some type of bioterrorism attack to all of our citizens in Anchorage through our partners, whether that's through AFD, APD, our school system, and our hospital systems. We are prepared to do that within 48 hours. We're also tasked with providing alternate care centers to decompress hospitals in the event of a citywide emergency such as an earthquake, tsunami, something like that. When the hospitals need to discharge people that are not needing acute care, we are charged with setting up an alternate care site. So we have partnerships with all of the rec centers, Alaska Airlines Center, the Sullivan Arena, etc. We are also in charge of ensuring our restaurants and other facilities are safe and providing safe food practices. So we make sure that we inspect and have enforcement duties with restaurants and other facilities, coffee carts and mobile food carts. We handle all of that for the municipality. We also manage our health information management. We do all of our billing and our clinical services. And we have a significant role in homeless prevention and affordable housing. With our partnerships with the Mayor's Homeless Coordinator, with our real estate department, etc., we implement HUD-funded home programs. Those are several $1 million a year where we select and have RFP processes for both public services and operating services that provide care. as well as the actual capital projects. We provide funding for that. We also provide reproductive health services. We provide services for seniors through these contractual arrangements and the Women, Infants, and Children Nutrition Education Program. Some of the highlights for this morning that I'd like you to see is we've broken down the number of FTEs in our different programs on our handout, as well as the actual budget for each program. One of the areas that we've received a lot of attention for this year is the Wellness on Wheels Mobile Health Clinic, or the WOW. We have provided over 20 times that we have utilized the WOW this past year. And typically we have our partner, the Lions Club, provides vision screenings through the WOW, but we also do extensive other types of clinic services in the WOW. If you have a utilization through the WOW, I hope you will, or an idea, I hope you will let me know. In addition to that, we want to make sure that we highlight what we look forward to in the future. We have approximately 50 partnerships to leverage our taxpayers' dollars to provide these services. On page 9, I highlight some of our partnerships, not all of them. So for every tax dollar that we utilize at DHHS, we try to maximize the leverage and partnership with that funding. And so that's a list of some of our partnerships. We have some of the areas that we're looking forward to working on this next year with your assistance and support are we desperately need a new building for DHHS. And our partners at Real Estate and Development are working very hard on that project, and we will be informing you as they will on how that's evolving. We don't have a contract yet, but we are hopeful this next year. That building needs so much renovation that it's really not cost effective. What we're also looking forward to is initiating some type of homeless medical outreach services through the Providence Residency Program. We may utilize the WOW for that, but we'll be providing you with information as that idea evolves. We recently passed with, of course, our legal department, we're the lead in the healthcare transparency ordinance. That is requiring healthcare practitioners to provide a good faith cost estimate at the request of the consumer. And we just launched that through all of the medical associations and all of our partnerships. We provided the WOW when the Brother Francis Clinic and the CARE Clinic was remodeled in the last month. We have the WOW station here to help with that. We also are working very actively on the anti-human trafficking process in Anchorage. The poster ordinance was passed this last year, and we want to move forward with those efforts in Anchorage. That is an extensive problem. We'll be providing you with information about that in this next year. We want to have a more robust language access program at DHHS. We have, as you know, so many languages in Anchorage, and many folks receive services at DHHS who have English as a second language. We're working actively on our revision of our food code to incorporate all of the very robust farmers markets and cottage food industry that has just blossomed in Anchorage. We're looking forward to, we're working with our stakeholders now on that effort, and we had a few bumps, but we're working through those. We also want to ensure that we develop our next strategic plan for the health department, since it's such a vital and important service in Anchorage. So those are the rush through highlights. If anyone has any questions.
Good question, Chris.
Yeah. So I found very recently the state is requiring its nonprofit grantees to coordinate with local governments to develop more formalized emergency response plans. So have you seen that at all?
Last year we were part of the development of a local emergency response plan that was in compliance with FEMA.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's connected to that, we worked on that last year.
Yeah, I don't think that it is, but I just know under the comprehensive granting system that they've just published this year, there is an explicit requirement. So I was hopeful that the department then would begin the process of moving that conversation to the kind of state, local.
Right, we're required to receive fundings from, federal funding through the state. We are required to have a very robust and accurate emergency response plan. So we have two. We have one to be able to continue operations of the DHHS in the event of an emergency, so to be able to have our operations up and running, and also respond to the community need through the operations, the Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, making sure I don't use too many acronyms. And so we also staff the Emergency Operations Center. There's a hospital desk. We make sure we track assisted living homes and vulnerable people who might need to be moved. So I will look into that.
Yeah, just one last touch on that. The question that was requested of the organization that I have a professional relationship with was, what commitment have you made to your local community in an emergency response situation? And so it's really the question of how can we get to the point where we're asking our local providers, what are you actually going to do when everything falls apart? You know, that's kind of the nuance of the question this year.
Okay. So that's what nonprofits, you said?
Yeah, and I can say that.
Sure. Right now we have very active partnerships through the EOC with Salvation Army for the food provision, as well as the Red Cross to actually staff emergency shelters in the event of an emergency. So I will look into that and send that email.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We hope you'll take a tour anytime.
Mark?
Mr. Chairman?
Sir?
Can we take some of these folks in the order in which they came in here?
Absolutely, I was going through this, but go ahead.
Great. No, so I think Steve Rebuffo gets to be first then. And then we'll have Mark Spafford at Solid Waste, then Brett Jokola at AWU, then Mark Johnston, and then Paul Bauer. That work? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, good morning. My name is Steve Rebuffo. I'm the deputy port director. Deputy port director for the first 8 years I was here, and for the last couple, I've had the pleasure of being the port director. What can I tell you about the port that you don't already know? It's an important part of the infrastructure, not only for the city, but for the state. And, about 85% of the population of the state, which includes all of South Central, up the rail belt, to Fairbanks and beyond, are our customers. So anything that you find in any big box store along the way, cars at car dealerships, rental cars, groceries, you name it. It's probably all come through this port first. We're a commercial strategic seaport, which means we have a responsibility to the Department of Defense to support the DoD mission here in the state. From the deployment, redeployment support side of that equation, it's with U.S. Army Alaska. With respect to Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, the Air Force side, all of the jet fuel that they use on JBER for all of their military operations comes through the port. One of the petroleum contractors that's down there at the port has the contract with DoD, so they supply all that fuel. We've got 3.4 million barrels of fuel storage down at the port. And the fuel side of our business is the growing side of our business. We've added one brand new petroleum company down there who's established a physical presence about 1.5 years ago. We have two more that have expressed interest. And Tesoro, who owned one of the petroleum terminals down there, but also bought the Flint Hills terminal when Flint Hills closed. Part of the deal for them to be able to purchase that, the Attorney General required that they divest one of the two terminals they already have at the port. They're putting the finishing touches on that contract now, so that terminal will be taken over by yet another entity that's never been down at the port before. So when you look at our denominator as far as attendance down there at the port is concerned, and that's the group that we spread out our costs over. The bigger that number gets in the denominator, the better it gets for everybody with respect to their share of the costs, to include us. Because in a lot of cases we share because some of that real estate is ours not to give away. So some of those costs we take on ourselves, and it even helps us to reduce the amount of contribution that we would have. On your little chart over there, I thought I would add just a 10-year summary of what our revenue and expense history looks like. We're pretty healthy, I'm proud to say, and it comes from a lot of hard work of the folks down there. You can see there's been an effect on
on things with respect to litigation. We've been able to recover all the costs we've expensed so far in the litigation effort. We're done with everybody but one defendant, that's the Maritime Administration. And just recently now, the Municipal Attorney's Office, with our outside counsel, has begun to ratchet up the effort to go down that road and take care of those guys. So we're hoping that we can get some kind of closure on this within the next couple of years and put it behind us and move on.
I understood it might be as much as 300 million.
I beg pardon?
The recovery might be as much as 300 million.
It could be as much as that. I don't know if the municipal attorneys have backed off on it, but for whatever the reason. Yeah.
And one thing to keep in mind, it's not the Port of Anchorage, it's Port of Alaska at Anchorage. We need to keep referring to the port in those terms. Because Juneau, when we say the Port of Anchorage, is we don't do anything for Anchorage. This isn't the Port of Anchorage, it's the Port of Alaska at Anchorage. When you look at what comes through our port, 85% comes through our state, comes through these doors. It doesn't stay just at Anchorage. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I appreciate the passion, and I hope you all get a dose of it as well. Because Mr. Train is absolutely right. You know, if you're a logistician and you live in Alaska, you think like you live on an island. And 90% of all the goods that come into the state come in on the water.
Tell them how often
Half
the
of
ship
that
comes in there.
Yeah.
How many times a week?
Yeah, twice a week we get 2 container ships, and it's nonstop year-round on petroleum. There is no off-season for that, and we've gone from seeing 5 or 6 tankers in 2012, 2013, to upwards of between 28 and 32 a year now, since the Flint Hills refinery closed. The demand didn't go anywhere, but the supply went away. The in-state supply went away, so that had to get filled from somewhere else. So that all comes from overseas. It comes across the dock. That's a boost to our bottom line, because our tariff for fuel coming across the dock is higher than when it comes down by rail. And just goes through the valve yard. So we're making a little extra coin as a consequence of that. And cement, about 85% of all the cement for all the construction projects in the state every year is now also stored down the port. Anchorage Sand and Gravel invested about $12 million to put that big dome that you see down there. That stores 40,000 tons of cement. So they have a total storage capacity of 60,000 tons. And they're pushing out already. Even before the first cement ship has come in for the season, they're pushing that out already. So folks are starting to move up for construction, and that's where a lot of that comes from.
Mr. Dyson?
Yeah, thank you. I was struck by you saying it was a pleasure to be the director at this time in history, and I'm delighted. As I remember, the Corps of Engineers does a significant amount of dredging to keep the water depth of the dock faces right. Would you comment on how much they do, approximately how much that costs them to do it, and the probability that they might quit doing it at some point in time?
Sure. I'll give you the best information I have. They tend not to share too much of the detail with us. But the Corps of Engineers has the responsibility by law to dredge the Port of Anchorage up to the face of the dock.
Yep.
Now, there aren't that many ports in the country. I would venture to say there aren't any others.
Is this there by law? Is that because of the military tie-in?
Well, I think that has a little bit to do with it, but also, Senator Stevens played a big part in getting that written into law, and part of the reason, for that was.
They don't need to know.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And how much do you think they spend?
Well, they get budgeted for dredging for the state of Alaska. They get budgeted about $10 million a year. They spend most of that on us.
That's all I needed to know. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
By the way, my mining friends tell me they'd be glad to dredge the whole thing for nothing if you'd let them run it over a ripple box.
Yeah, they'd probably cover a lot of gold doing that, wouldn't they? Any other questions for Director?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as Mr. Trainee eloquently stated, this is the Port of Alaska, and I know that he and other members of the body who have served have spent several years advocating on behalf of the port. And I imagine that's probably part of what us new members will do as well. Will we have an opportunity to tour the port and really dig deep into what's going on at the port?
Yeah, and it's your port, so you are welcome down there anytime. But we're working with Barbara to see if there's a way to get a schedule to get more than one of you down there at a time.
Okay.
But give us a call, Felix. We'll make an effort to get you down there.
I know
that's convenient for you.
The Enterprise Committee has already planned to schedule a number of tours for several of the Enterprise facilities, and I'm sure they'll make it available to members regardless of your membership on the committee.
But Mike, if you do that, I want them to go into the pilings themselves, not just from up top. I want them to see what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, we'd like to put people on boats.
Yeah, that's one of the most telling parts of the adventure is to come down and get in a boat with us at a negative low tide and get up close to the pilot. Jim's got something we had this little pointy talkie, if you will, made out to give folks, and we take this with us when we go out and give presentations. It gives you a first-hand look at what the problem is that we're talking about. We've got 1,430-something pilots that support the dock. When the place was built, there was no engineering standard for marine terminals back in the late 1950s, early 1960s.
So, Steve, I don't mean to cut everybody off, but we're four more enterprises to talk about.
Okay.
You'll get as much information on the board as you can tolerate, we promise.
And I just want to come and thank you very much, Steve. And Jim was one of the first people that reached out to me. I think he contacted me the day after the election asking to set up tours for you. So there's a couple of options on the tours, and we are going to work through the Enterprise Committee. They're especially busy on Tuesdays, which I now have firsthand knowledge because my niece was a crew member on one of the cargo ships. And so that would be an opportunity for you to see cargo ships. But the other thing is we're waiting until spring because then they can get out on a boat on the pilings, right?
When the ice is gone and it's not dangerous to get under.
So that's why we haven't scheduled something for you yet, but as Mike said, we're going to work through the Enterprise Committee and pick some dates to do that. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. So, Mark, there you go. Mark Spafford, the General Manager at Solid Waste Services.
Good almost afternoon. My name is Mark Spafford. I've been with the municipality for about 3 years now. I've been the General Manager over at Solid Waste Services for a year. 2.5 years before that, I worked for, you'll hear from in a few minutes, Fred Chopla at Baker's Water and Wastewater Utility. Graduated from East High, have a master's and bachelor's degree in environmental engineering. I'm a professional engineer. Came back after college to come back here to live and work, and I have 2 kids and proud to call Anchorage home. So that's a little bit about me. As far as Solid Waste Services is concerned, we're an enterprise fund. We're completely funded by user fees, so no taxes are used in our operations. The one thing that I learned, because I came from the wastewater industry, and it was a little bit of an interesting learning curve when I got there, because it's not just like we're a landfill. In reality, we're a trucking company, and so the majority of our people are involved with basically driving in circles all day, 6 days a week. That's what they do. So we have 2 separate utilities. One is the collections utility, which we have the red trucks, which we service, parts of Turnagain, downtown, Fairview, Mountain View, those areas. So we have about 20% of the collection area within Anchorage, and the other 80% is serviced by private haulers, and Alaska Waste is curbside outside of our area. The other big piece of our operation is the landfill. Anchorage Regional Landfill takes about 1,200 tons per day of solid waste. The disposal utility has pretty much 2 commodities that we use to stay in business. One is airspace. So basically, people come in, we get a cost per ton fee that we collect from them when they dispose of the waste, and then eventually What happens is that garbage decomposes, and we have a gas collection system at the Anchorage Regional Landfill that collects gas. And we have an agreement with Joy on utilities. They purchase gas from us, and then they sell it to power Fort Richardson at this time. So basically, we've got 5 generators out there right now, which I think it's just over 7 kilowatts of production capacity out there. We're working with them right now to help them expand that project. Hopefully drop in another generator and expand the amount of gas that we can sell them as well. And so right now, the big points about the Anchorage Regional Landfill is we have airspace basically projected to last at that landfill until the end of 2050. So the question that we have to start asking ourselves is, what do we do on January 1st, 2051 when the ERL is closed? And so that's a question that we're going to be asking ourselves with, we haven't completed a master plan in 30 years, so we're starting that process right now. The results from the master plan 30 years ago was build a transfer station, which we have, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with, and then site the landfill, which we have in the regional landfill. So we're starting the process over of looking, at the next 5 to 50 years, and a big piece of that is going to be, what can we do to, one, extend the life of the regional landfill, and then the second one is, what do we do, if we can't find another space, to site another landfill, which, obviously space is a pretty big issue here in town. So, and nobody wants a landfill in their backyard, right? So we have to do all that we can right now to recycle, reduce the amount of waste that's going to Anchorage Regional Landfill, so that way we can extend the life out for generations. So that's going to be one of the main questions, one of the biggest projects for us coming up over the next 1 to 2 years is starting to try to address those questions and get what the future of solid waste services is going to look like here at the municipality. So we've got about 100 employees. Our annual budget's around $33 million, and so 2/3 of that is in disposal, and the other third is on the collection side. We have a customer service division, that takes payments, answers phone calls, works with the collections drivers, helps deal with customer service issues. We have a small engineering and planning division. We have an administrative division which houses my office and stuff like that, and then we have a finance division as well. And so I know that we're trying to keep stuff short, and that's pretty much the high level 50,000 foot overview of the department. Now, of course, just like what Steve said before me, we're happy to set up any kind of tours, or if you want to come out to. In fact, I encourage it, because really, unless you go out to the landfill, you won't really know what's going on there. And it's a really big operation. It's almost like a mining operation, as a matter of fact. And also, it's nice to kind of see and get a feel for the magnitude of garbage and solid waste that's generated here by the community. So, and also the landfill gas to energy plant is a pretty nice thing to see too. So,
Question, Assembly members. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The free dump day comes up.
Oh yeah, sorry. Real quick, free dump days are tomorrow, as well as next Saturday. So please come out and join us. If you've seen you, make sure you stop by and say
Tell them where it's at, because it's not.
Sorry, yeah, it's not at the Central Transfer Station anymore. It's actually at the Anchorage Regional Landfill. So have a good day.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
That is quite a lot.
Well, congratulations. Welcome to the business of government at the welcome back. I'm Brett Doka. I'm the general manager of Water and Wastewater Utility, whose core purpose is to protect the health and welfare of the public and environment. That's kind of our overarching creed that we keep in front of the staff and in front of the public. To do that, we have a kind of a three-legged stool. And talk to our staff about the utility being composed of responsible financing, reliable infrastructure, and professional workforce. And so I'll talk about each of those three-legged just a little bit. We are a significant financial engine for the municipality. We have revenues of about $110 million a year. Among two utilities, we have a separate water and wastewater utility that are regulated by the Regulatory Commission of Alaska, so we keep those books separate, but essentially the operations are combined, so that half my time is built one utility and the other half is built the other utility. Different facilities that we have are owned by one utility or the other, just to keep the books straight down. We have flat rates for most of our customer base. We have about 56,000 customers. About 50,000 of those customers are single-family dwellings, and flat rates are rather unusual in the industry. Most of the water and wastewater utilities have volumetric rates with a small core price, and then
Metered water.
Pardon me?
Metered water.
Metered water, exactly. We've looked at that about adding meters a number of different times, and it doesn't seem to pencil out. We're looking at about $1,000 per meter times 50,000 accounts. There's a $50 million project that benefits not a whole lot of those folks. So we ruled out moving to meters. We put about $13 million in transfers to general government via the municipal utility service assessment, which is a payment in lieu of taxes, based on it operates very much like property tax, so that we're taxed on the $900 million of net assets that we have. What comes in net income keeps our debt in check. We use that to invest in infrastructure, and we've been talking about possible dividend to the general government to increase the rate of transfer from that $13 million figure for municipal to something a little bit more than that. As far as reliable infrastructure goes, I talk about 1,600 miles of buried treasure. That's all the buried water and wastewater lines throughout the municipality. But Util Lake provides about 90% of our water, and the rest of the water is provided by the Ship Creek water plant and about 14 wells that are distributed around the city. We usually use the wells as a supplement to the water source. In Ship Creek, we operate it enough to keep it in good practice, but it's a supplement as well, so that when we are doing maintenance at the equipment plant, we can have alternative water resources available to us. We also have a very robust SCADA system, supervisor control and data acquisition, that provides for control of 110 different facilities around that help distribute the water and collect and pump sewage to our wastewater plants. We have 3 wastewater plants, the largest of which is at Fort Bronzoff, Lake Asplin, named after Mayor Asplin of the 60s and 70s. And Mayor Asplin actually was the first to actually propose and became a champion of having a wastewater treatment plant rather than have individual discharges around the peninsula. That plant is unusual among plants today because we fit under a section of the Clean Water Act called Section 301H. And 301H allows a modification of the standard for the discharge from secondary standard to primary standard, based on the idea that we had tremendous tides and very quick diffusion and dissolution of the wastewater, and no documentation of any adverse impacts in the receiving water, which is the case. We've been monitoring very closely for 35 years now, and we haven't found a trace of an adverse impact on Cook Inlet. We looked very hard, very closely at the prospects for impacts to beluga whales, since they were named as endangered in 2008. And we've made the point that if there is any harm being done to beluga whales from the discharge, we want to be the first to know. So we take that very seriously. And those critters are our paths. We have 2 plants outside of the main bowl. We have a plant near the river, runs about 2.5 million gallons a day. We have a plant at Girdwood, runs about 500,000 gallons a day. Those plants are secondary plus because of the discharge of fresh water, we want to make sure that we're getting very good removals of contaminants and pollutants from those discharges. And in fact, all three of the plants are award-winning plants. We get awards generally every year from the National Association of Clean Water Agencies. And we'll keep reprisals of how that's done. Were we to provide secondary treatment at Aspen, we're looking at a prospective expense, obviously rough order magnitude of $1 billion. Our requirement is to get 30% removal of BOD and controlled suspended solids. We actually are getting now 75% removal of suspended solids and about 50% removal of BOD. So we're treating the wastewater now to a far greater extent than our permit actually requires us to do it. In fact, pretty close to what a secondary plant would provide for. So adding $1 billion to get the 10% increase in total suspended solid removal doesn't make much sense to me. Professional workforce, we have about 285 employees. About close to half of those, maybe 45% of those, are members of the Plumbers Union, Local 367. That doesn't include just guys that turn wrenches. It also includes our SCADA technicians and our industrial control technicians, our fleet folks, and all of our treatment plant operators. So that's a very important part of our professional workforce. We also have about 100 or so AMEA employees that are doing the white collar work, the engineers, the accountants, the account representatives that answer the phone and take care of customers along the way. We have an advisory board in the period from 2005 to 2011. The board actually managed the utility, so they took the load off the municipal assembly by taking care of all the procurement activities. We had in-house procurement staff and in-house human resources staff as well. In 2011, we abdicated those functions back to the municipality as a whole, and the assembly left the board with the authority to hear complaints and not much else. Happily, they don't hear a lot of complaints, so it's not too bad. But our board is composed of 7 folks. The way we set it up for the authority has remained in place. We have different expertise on our members of our board. We have a lawyer, accountant, engineer, public health folks. We want to have a broad suite of folks that provide a good sounding board and good advice for us. That's pretty much all I had on the general overview. I mean, you're more than welcome to get more details, or certainly it's, I'm sure you'll find it very interesting to come to one or any of the plants if you haven't been to Clutno or been to Asplin or been to one of the smaller plants. We'd be happy to have you out and give you the full show.
There's 2 things we add into the water. One's chloride, for the water, and the other one's fluoride. You're going to hear a lot of calls about fluoride. We've looked at it twice. Both times, the Assembly's decision has been to keep fluoride in the water. But you'll hear people getting a hold of you saying, we want it out now. So you might want to take a look at that because they're going to be back again.
And we do that not because the utility are advocates, although I personally think it's a good idea. The Centers for Disease Control, the Public Health Service, the EPA, a lot of federal agencies have determined that this is the best thing for public health in terms of oral health than anybody else would say so. But there are those that are concerned about this being an application of medicine without the oversight of a physician. I can't speak to that. We do it because the Assembly has put it in code and has, as Tracy said, been tested a couple times. We're going to keep doing it until
So just it's got to come up while you're on. So.
Just quickly, there used to be problems with contaminants and petroleum products in the storm drains, Is that still an issue at all?
Well, we don't do the storm drains. That's, I'm talking about the Public Works Department with respect to roads.
Okay, all right,
But,
thank you.
It's getting better, I think.
Anything else? Questions?
I've got one other comment. I provided the clerk a copy of our strategic plan. It outlines the 4 strategic goals that are kind of above and beyond our day-to-day operations about where we want to head. The goals would be to be responsible to these communities, being the employer of choice for existing and future staff, be a model of innovation and efficiency in public service, and lastly, to be a responsible steward of ratepayer finances. So, happy reading. Anything else?
Thank you.
We have great water in this town, and we don't have to pay anything to pump it into Anchorage. It comes out of Kootenai. We actually have to slow the water down. It has so much gravity used influence into Anchorage. It's a marvelous system. I talked to other towns that have to pump water out of the ground. It's so costly. It's a nice system we've done here.
If you've ever,
Dick, you're welcome.
I know.
We have a strange deal with Anchorage. We give them the best water in the country, and they give us garbage and sex offenders.
But we let you be part of the municipality, Brad.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Mr. Chairman, Mark Johnston is next, the General Manager of Municipal Light and Power.
I had the opportunity to meet all of you last week. As Mike said, Mark Johnston, Municipal Light and Power General Manager. We are one of 6 utilities in the rail belt, one of 2 municipalities. We're the one of, I think, only 2 municipalities that are actually regulated by the Regulatory Commission of Alaska. We're the only utility that is fully integrated. We own 57% of the Beluga River gas unit. So we produce the gas, which we burn in our generation plants. We transmit the electricity, and then we have the distribution system that takes it to the residential customers and businesses. Our service territory covers downtown, midtown. We serve J-Bear, although we basically just provide them the power. They operate their own distribution systems on J-Bear, and then the UMED district falls within our service territory. That makes up about 30,800 customers. The split is about 80% residential, 20% commercial. When you look at usage, it actually flips. The residential uses about 12% of the electricity, and commercial is 88%. We have currently about 233 employees. About 85% of those are represented by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. The remaining 15% are split between non-represented and executive employees. We currently have 3 wholly owned plants. Plant 1, which is down by Ship Creek. There are 2 units remaining there. They are simple cycle gas-fired units. Plant 2, which is out along the Glen Highway, there are 2 units there. They are also gas-fired simple cycle. The difference is simple cycle means that it's just the unit itself. Combined cycle is that there is a steam unit that uses the excess heat to generate additional electricity. Plant 2A, our newest, is along the Glen Highway as well. There are 3 units there, 2 combustion turbines and 1 steam turbine. And that is currently our only combined cycle plant. We own a 30% share of the South Central Power Plant with Chugach, which is out along Minnesota Drive, and that gives us about 54 megawatts of power from there. We have 3 major projects now that we have brought 2A online that we're working on. The LED streetlight replacement, and that's something that if you're other than Brad, I believe, you'll probably hear something about from your constituents. In fact, I need to get back with Felix on one. That is expected to be completed by the end of 2017. We have about 4,000 lights that we are replacing. We don't own all of those lights, and in fact, we we own a small percentage of those. Some are owned by the city, some are owned by the state, Parks and Rec and others. We have the smart meter pilot that we are hoping to start installing meters in June. They're the next generation of meters. They are smart in that they can do reads of up to every 5 minutes and provide the electrical usage from a house. They are smart in that they tell us the usage and report back to us. We currently have a system of meters that are AMR, remote reads, and so you have someone in a car or truck that drives through a neighborhood and it can read the meters or depending on the makeup of the neighborhood in either direction, and then it downloads it into a device which then is brought back to our office and put into a database. The new meters actually will report back the reads to the database directly without anybody having to go out. They have a number of features which we will probably not turn on right away, but the improved reads allow us to provide information to businesses and consumers so that they can track their usage, and then if they are making investments in energy efficiency, whether it be LED lights, replacing appliances, those types of things, they can actually see the difference that makes in their electric bill. The last item is the power pool agreement that we signed in January with MEA, Shugatch, and MLMP. If you have an opportunity, we will be, the three of us, at the Make It Monday Forum on Monday doing a presentation. That allows us to pool our resources to meet the combined load of all three utilities. It allows us to utilize the most efficient generation to meet that load so that Plant 2A is the most efficient, it starts, and then you add on the next efficient, which is SPP, and then the last would be the effluent generating units that MEA owns. If you need to go beyond those, then you would get into something more akin to the simple cycle units, which are not quite as efficient. The last thing that I wanted to mention was we currently transfer to the municipality about $13 million a year. That's in the form of about $9 million of MUSA, which is in lieu of property tax, and about $4 million for services provided for the IGCs. With that, I will answer any questions that you might have.
Question from Mark? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our last presenter this afternoon is Paul Bauer, the General Manager of Merrill Field.
I know. That's your goal. Thank you.
It's sort of like Uhura on Star Trek, you know, when it says the computer says. That's my job.
Yeah, right.
Well, good afternoon, folks. My name is Paul Bauer, Airport Manager of Merrill Field. And the handout to Josh is self-explanatory. Our mission statement is to basically be a good environment for the GA community and be a good neighbor, promote economic development, and maintain a viable financial position. We're the smallest department in the city, only 10 people, period, and that covers year-round ops, 7-day-a-week operation of the airfield. And part of that operation is we've done about 130,000 operations a year, 830 airplanes based in Merrill Field. That's about 8% of all the aircraft in the land. 3 runways, east, west, north, south, and a gravel general aviation ski strip that is a diagonal to that. Presently restricted to 12,500-pound weight aircraft. The runway is capable of 80,000 pounds, complements of the days when it was the only airport in South Central, almost 1930. But presently it's 12.5. Exceptions, emergencies, prior approval for aircraft maintenance and air shows. We've got 4 fixed-wing flight schools, 2 rotorcraft flight schools, And that's among the 45 businesses, 51 leaseholds, 19 buildings, and hundreds of multiple land use permittees. Tight on that. We're the only, by the way, we're the only airport in the country that has a direct link to a taxi, a direct taxiway link to a hospital. The direct taxiway is 100 feet wide, 4,000 feet straight, and that will accommodate a C-130 medevac on straight into the back of the hospital emergency. 437 acres, owned and operated by the MOA as an enterprise department, completely self-sufficient, no state or general fund levels go into the airport. Operating budget is pretty frugal, 1.7 and 1.4 for operating expenses, 300,000 a year for net. And that covers our project sponsor shares, which run between 5 and 6.25%. Non-federal capital expenses and a budgetary cushion for unexpected expenses. And the year-over-year carryover funds remain in the airport capital operating reserve and federal law prohibits airport revenue diversion to non-airport purpose. And we adjust our rates annually based on the Anchorage Consumer Price Index. And if you flip that over, it gives you an idea of where the former landfill is. That's about 42% of the entire airfield configuration. That airfield was closed in 1987, and that's why even though the landfill is getting out. And that, you go up 15th Street and turn onto Merrifield Drive. Two things to notice. One, that bank along 15 is about 45 feet of a crash. And as you drive on the Merrifield Drive, those are not cross meters, that's differential settling of underlying crash mass. That's a great way to reclaim former landfill, a terrible place to go live.
I talked about methane escapes earlier.
But we actually had 2 flare houses on field to address methane. All of the underlying areas where there's development on the former landfill have a methane collection system, subterranean piping deal that pumps it into the flare houses. There's enough methane there to have to deal with it, but just not enough to be productive. In fact, if the flow is so low, we actually have to supplement that with N-Star or propane to keep it going. And there's a lot of development on field. The second picture on the back shows the hangar developments in the last couple of years and what's proposed for the next couple of years, this year and next. That, any questions, please?
Questions from any members? I don't know if you guys remember, but we brought a 727 into this airmobile. It came in one time, and the place was crowded with people watching it come in. It's an awfully big plane to land there.
That will never fly again.
No, it doesn't. But it did land.
It did land. The runway is long, but it can only come in January, February, the first week in March. When instead of having 4 inches of asphalt, we had 6 feet of asphalt because frost froze the ground beneath.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That should be about it.
Mr. Chairman, I think that concludes our presentations for today. I appreciate your time and patience with all of us.
We're back on schedule. It's 12:11, so we meet our 12:15 deadline. For that reason, we didn't buy lunch for everybody. There are bagels if anybody would like lunch. You'll get it scheduled for your next set of meetings, Mr. Chair, which I believe we have a few next Friday on May 8th.
But there's nothing else for this afternoon.
There is not. It's a Sunday.
You're free. Thanks for being here.